There are people who rise each morning, pour their energy into tasks, and move through the day with heads bent low, brick after brick, building something they never pause to examine. They finish one duty, then the next, without ever lifting their eyes to ask, what am I truly constructing? A wall? A house? Or perhaps an entire city? And then there are others, fewer in number but far more influential, who step back and gaze from a distance. With a single look, they sense the outline of the whole structure, where it begins and where it must end. This is the difference between those who simply work and those who think strategically. In a world that shifts faster than ever before, this difference is not a luxury. It is survival. If you only react to what is in front of you, you are forever at the mercy of events. But if you develop the ability to see the bigger picture, to imagine tomorrow while shaping today, you gain something priceless: direction. Without it, even the most hard-working person can remain trapped in the cycle of busyness without progress. With it, an ordinary individual can grow into a leader who sets the course not only for themselves, but for others. And since you are here with me, listening, I invite you to take a moment to interact with this community. Write in the comments where you are listening from and what time of day it is. I would love to see how far this circle of strategic thinkers is already spreading across the world. And if you find this audiobook valuable, subscribe to Audiobook Sanctuary and turn on the notification bell, so you will never miss a story that could sharpen your vision for the future. Now let us continue. The distinction between working and thinking strategically can be illustrated through countless lives. Consider the factory worker who puts in 10-hour days, loyal and diligent, but who after decades finds themselves no closer to financial independence. Their energy has been consumed by the present, leaving no time to envision the future. Contrast this with an individual who may begin in the same factory, yet who takes time each week to ask, where is this industry going? How can I align my skills with the next wave of demand? What can I do today to be prepared for 5 years from now? By asking these questions, by looking up from the bricks, they slowly shift from being a worker to becoming a strategist. Strategic thinking begins not with knowledge, but with perspective. Imagine two chess players. One sees only the piece in front of them and makes moves out of instinct. The other envisions not just the next move, but 5, 10, 15 moves ahead. Which player do you think shapes the game? Strategy is not speed, it is foresight. It is the courage to pause before acting and the discipline to weigh how each step aligns with the final destination. This principle has echoed throughout history. Julius Caesar did not march into Gaul simply for a series of small victories. He envisioned how conquering Gaul would secure his political power back in Rome. Abraham Lincoln did not endure years of national conflict merely to preserve territory. He foresaw a country reshaped by freedom, stronger because it confronted its deepest wound. In business, Steve Jobs did not create products only for immediate sales. He imagined an ecosystem where design, technology, and user experience formed a future people did not even know they needed. Each of these figures acted with the eye of a strategist, not merely a worker. So how does one begin the transformation? It starts with a single mental shift, refusing to measure progress by the number of tasks completed, and instead measuring it by how close those tasks bring you to your larger vision. Too often, we are seduced by the comfort of a checked box, the illusion of productivity. But true productivity asks, is this action moving me toward where I ultimately want to be? A person who spends years answering emails may look busy, yet achieve little. A strategist spends one afternoon designing a system that reduces future emails by half and suddenly reclaims time for higher goals. There is a story of two lumberjacks, often told as a parable of vision. One chopped without rest from dawn to dusk, sweating and straining, his pile growing steadily. The other took pauses, stepping back, even sharpening his axe while the first continued swinging. By evening, the second lumberjack had cut more trees. The difference was not effort, but foresight. The willingness to stop working in order to ensure the work mattered. So it is with strategic thinking. Pausing to sharpen your vision can make you far more effective than endless activity. Let us bring this closer to everyday life. Imagine a professional who spends 20 years in one role, loyal but stagnant. They worked hard, yes, but never cultivated the perspective to see how industries change. Then imagine another who every few years asks, "Where is my field headed? Which skills will be obsolete? Which will be vital?" They take courses, build networks, and position themselves ahead of the curve. When the industry shifts, they rise while others fall behind. Both worked, only one thought strategically. Strategic thinking is also a matter of courage. To lift your head and look beyond today is often frightening. You might see risks others ignore. You might realize the comfort of routine is leading nowhere. Many people avoid strategic thinking because it forces them to confront uncomfortable truths, that their current path is unsustainable, that change is required. Yet ignoring these truths is far more dangerous. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. At its heart, strategic thinking asks three questions. What is my ultimate destination? Where am I now? And what bridges must I build to get there? Without these questions, a person drifts. With them, even the simplest of actions. Reading a book, making a connection, saving $1 becomes part of a larger design. This design is what separates survival from growth, mediocrity from greatness. The world we inhabit today demands this skill more than any previous age. Technology disrupts entire industries in a matter of months. A business model that thrived yesterday can vanish tomorrow. A career built on one set of skills can be outdated before the decade ends. If you do not train your vision to see the larger shifts, you risk being swept aside. But if you cultivate strategic thinking, you can anticipate the storm and set sail while others still cling to the shore. In families too, strategy matters. Consider financial planning. A family that spends impulsively, living paycheck to paycheck, may survive day to day, but will never escape the cycle of stress. Another family, though earning the same income, sets aside savings, invests in education, and builds emergency reserves. Years later, when crises strike, one collapses while the other stands firm. The difference is not luck, but foresight. One was reactive, the other strategic. The good news is that strategic thinking is not reserved for generals, presidents, or CEOs. It is a muscle, and like any muscle, it strengthens with use. It begins by stepping back from the immediate, carving out time to reflect, and daring to ask the long questions. It means resisting the seduction of short-term rewards in order to aim for long-term fulfillment. And it means reimagining yourself not as a player moving randomly on the board of life, but as the one shaping the game itself. As you listen to these words, perhaps you are reflecting on your own life. Do you spend your days focused on tasks, or do you occasionally pause to consider the horizon? When was the last time you asked yourself where you want to be 5 years from now, and whether your current actions are carrying you there? These questions may seem simple, but they are the seeds of transformation. If the difference between a worker and a strategist lies in perspective, the next question becomes clear. How do we train ourselves to adopt that perspective? Where do we begin when seeking to think strategically rather than reactively? The answer lies in one essential discipline, always beginning with the end in mind. And that, dear listener, is where our journey now turns. If the difference between those who merely work and those who think strategically begins with perspective, then the first discipline of perspective is clarity of destination. Imagine embarking on a long journey without a map, without even deciding the city you hope to reach. You might walk with energy, determination, and persistence. But where will you end up? Perhaps in circles. Perhaps in a place you never intended. Strategic thinking demands that we reverse the order. Before taking the first step, envision the last. Always begin with the end in mind. This principle is deceptively simple. It is not about dreaming vague notions of success or happiness. It is about defining with specificity what your ultimate outcome looks like. A business leader must ask, what impact do I want this company to have in 10 years? An individual must ask, where do I want my life to be 5 years from now, financially, emotionally, spiritually? Without an answer, every decision becomes guesswork. With an answer, even the smallest choice can be measured against that vision. History gives us striking examples of this principle. Consider President John F. Kennedy's declaration in 1961 that before the decade ended, America would land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. At the time, the U.S. space program was behind the Soviet Union. The statement seemed audacious, even impossible. Yet because the end goal was so clearly defined, every decision in NASA was aligned toward it. Resources, engineering, and innovation were all filtered through a single question. Will this bring us closer to the moon? By 1969, Neil Armstrong's foot pressed into lunar dust, and the world saw what clarity of destination could achieve. Contrast that with organizations that lack clarity. Many companies pursue trends without aligning them to a long-term vision. They launch products, chase markets, and appear busy, yet they scatter energy in too many directions. Without a clearly defined end, their work fragments into confusion, and eventually, they fall. The lesson is timeless. If you do not decide where you are going, someone else will decide for you. Or worse, chance will. For individuals, beginning with the end in mind requires honest reflection. Too often, we inherit goals from society without questioning them. We assume success means wealth, status, or approval, and we run toward these ends without asking, is this truly my desired destination? A strategic thinker dares to slow down and ask deeper questions. What does fulfillment look like to me? What values must my life express? What legacy do I wish to leave? By clarifying these personal answers, they create a compass that guides their choices. There is a story of a man who worked tirelessly, climbing the ladder of corporate success. After decades, he reached the top, only to discover the ladder had been leaning against the wrong wall. He had pursued an end that was never truly his own. This tragedy is all too common. Strategic thinking saves us from such waste by forcing us to ask early, is this ladder against the wall I want to climb? Practical tools can help. Vision statements, for example, are not just for corporations. Any person can craft one. A simple statement like, in 10 years, I want to live debt-free, working in a field I love, with time to travel and support my family, becomes a filter for daily actions. Each choice can be measured. Does this bring me closer to that vision or further away? The clarity simplifies decisions that might otherwise overwhelm. Another helpful practice is backward planning. Suppose your end goal is to retire with financial security at age 60. Begin by envisioning that moment. How much income will you need? What lifestyle do you desire? Then trace backward. If you must accumulate a certain amount, what does that require by age 50, by 45, by 40? Suddenly, saving and investing today are not random acts of discipline, but necessary steps toward a defined future. Backward planning transforms vague intentions into concrete pathways. The same applies in leadership. A manager who begins with the end in mind does not simply assign tasks. They articulate the larger objective, perhaps to expand into a new market or to improve customer satisfaction. Then every task is framed as a contribution to that outcome. Employees feel aligned, not micromanaged, because they understand the why. Clarity of destination breeds motivation as well as efficiency. The principle also has spiritual weight. Ancient wisdom traditions often stress the importance of envisioning life's ultimate meaning. "Teach us to number our days," says a biblical psalm, "that we may gain a heart of wisdom." When we remember life itself has an end, we learn to choose wisely how we spend our time. Strategic thinkers carry this awareness. They ask not only, "What will this bring me tomorrow?" but also, "What will this mean at the end of my life?" This long horizon transforms priorities. Consider how Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, frames his decisions. He often advises, "Only buy something that you'd be perfectly happy to hold if the market shut down for 10 years. In other words, his end goal is not quick profit, but enduring value. By clarifying this long-term principle, he avoids the distractions of daily fluctuations and aligns his strategy with his ultimate destination. In daily life, beginning with the end in mind can guide even small moments. Picture two parents saving for their child's education. One spends freely, promising to figure it out later. The other, holding the vision of their child walking across a graduation stage, saves consistently, invests wisely, and sacrifices luxuries. The second parent may feel discomfort now, but their end goal brings direction and peace. When graduation day arrives, they are not scrambling, they are prepared. Of course, defining the end is not easy. It requires honesty, courage, and often imagination. Some resist because they fear committing to a path. Others avoid it because it forces them to confront their mortality or limitations. But the act of defining a destination does not imprison, it liberates. It frees you from distraction, from chasing every shiny opportunity, from wasting energy. It gives you focus, and focus is the rarest currency in a noisy world. There is an old proverb: "The man who chases two rabbits catches neither." Strategic thinking insists you define which rabbit is worth chasing. Otherwise, you will run forever without result. Beginning with the end in mind does not guarantee the journey will be smooth, but it ensures that when you arrive, it will be where you intended. At this point, you may be asking yourself, what is my end in mind? What do I truly want my life, career, or business to look like in the long run? If you have not asked, let this be the moment you begin. Write it down. Articulate it clearly. Imagine it vividly. Then hold it as the reference point for every decision. But once the destination is clear, another challenge arises. Knowing where you want to go is essential, but how do you navigate the unpredictable path between here and there? Life is filled with uncertainties, risks, and shifting conditions. This is where strategy requires more than vision. It requires instruments, frameworks, and tools that help us move steadily toward the goal. In the next section, We will explore these tools, the practical ways to sharpen clarity, anticipate obstacles, and ensure that the end we envision is not just a dream, but a reachable reality. Once you have defined the end in mind, the question becomes, how do you chart the path from here to there? It is not enough to dream of a destination. You must also equip yourself with the instruments to navigate. Just as a sailor would be foolish to set out across an ocean without compass, sextant, and charts, so too the strategist must rely on certain tools to guide their way. 3 of the most enduring are SWOT analysis, scenario planning, and risk matrices. They may sound like concepts belonging only to business schools, but when applied with imagination, they serve anyone, leader, professional, or parent, who wishes to move intentionally toward the future. Let us begin with SWOT analysis, a framework so simple yet so powerful that it has survived decades of use. The acronym stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Imagine you are evaluating your own career. Your strengths might include creativity, adaptability, and strong communication skills. Your weaknesses might include a lack of technical expertise or difficulty with delegation. Opportunities could appear in the form of a growing industry, an emerging technology, or a new network connection. Threats might include automation replacing your role, economic downturns, or new competitors. By placing these 4 categories on a single page, you transform vague intuition into a map. You see not only who you are today, but also how you might position yourself for tomorrow. SWOT is not confined to individuals. Cities have used it to plan their growth. Nonprofits have used it to refine their mission. Even families can use it. Imagine sitting down and asking, what are our strengths as a household? Perhaps resilience, love, and discipline. What are our weaknesses? Maybe overspending or lack of time together. Opportunities? Investment in education, moving to a better neighborhood. Threats? Rising costs of living, health risks. Such a discussion brings clarity, honesty, and unity. It forces you to confront reality while pointing toward possibility. The second tool, scenario planning, addresses a truth we all know. The future is unpredictable. A strategist cannot rely on a single forecast. Instead, they prepare for multiple possible futures. Scenario planning originated with the oil company Royal Dutch Shell in the 1970s. Rather than assuming oil prices would remain stable, Shell imagined different scenarios. What if prices collapsed? What if they soared? What if political upheaval disrupted supply? By rehearsing these scenarios, they were ready when the 1973 oil crisis struck. While competitors struggled, Shell adapted quickly and rose to become an industry leader. You can apply the same principle in your own life. Suppose you are considering a career change. You might create 3 scenarios. Scenario A: the new industry thrives and you rise quickly. Scenario B: the industry slows and opportunities shrink. Scenario C: your current field reinvents itself, making your old skills valuable again. By thinking through each scenario, you prepare responses in advance. You avoid panic when one unfolds because you have rehearsed it in your mind. Scenario planning is not about predicting the future. It is about being prepared for whichever future arrives. Risk matrices, the third tool, are less glamorous but no less essential. They ask 2 simple questions. How likely is this risk to occur, and how severe would its impact be? By plotting risks on a grid, low probability to high, low impact to high, you learn where to focus attention. Consider an entrepreneur launching a startup. A delayed shipment might be likely but low impact. A lawsuit might be unlikely but catastrophic. The risk matrix forces prioritization. Deal with the high likelihood, high impact risks first. Prepare contingencies for the unlikely but devastating, and avoid wasting energy on trivial dangers. When we ignore risk, we walk blindly. When we obsess over risk, we become paralyzed. The matrix provides balance, giving structure to uncertainty. Families can use it too. What if the primary earner loses a job? What if medical expenses rise? What if inflation eats into savings? By mapping these risks, a family can create emergency funds, insurance, or alternate income streams before crisis strikes. Strategic thinking transforms fear into foresight. Beyond these three, countless other tools exist. Balanced scorecards, 5 forces analysis, design thinking frameworks. Yet the danger is not in lacking tools, but in misusing them. A hammer can build a house or shatter glass. It depends on the hand that wields it. Tools do not replace judgment. They sharpen it. They discipline the mind to think beyond instinct and to confront reality with clarity. To illustrate, let us consider the story of Toyota after World War II. The company faced immense weaknesses: scarce resources, little market share, and limited capital. Yet through analysis, they recognized strengths: an adaptable workforce and a culture of continuous improvement. Opportunities lay in rising demand for affordable, reliable cars. Threats included powerful American automakers dominating global markets. By mapping these factors, Toyota refined a strategy of lean production, focusing on efficiency and quality. Decades later, it became one of the world's largest automakers. SWOT did not guarantee success, but it gave a framework that revealed a path. Or take scenario planning in the world of public health. In 2019, few foresaw a global pandemic altering life so completely. Yet those institutions that had practiced pandemic scenarios, stockpiling equipment, rehearsing responses, adapted faster than those that had never imagined the possibility. Hospitals with contingency plans coped better. Businesses with remote work scenarios survived while others collapsed. The lesson: imagining unlikely futures may feel uncomfortable, but when crisis arrives, foresight saves lives. Risk matrices, too, have countless heroes. Consider aviation. Every flight is guided by risk assessment. Pilots constantly calculate likelihood and impact. What if weather worsens? What if an engine fails? By categorizing and prioritizing risks, they transform the inherently dangerous act of flying into one of the safest modes of travel. Strategy here is not abstract. It is life or death. These tools share one characteristic. They compel us to pause, reflect, and confront reality. They interrupt the rush of action, forcing us to sharpen our axe before chopping the tree. They remind us that vision without discipline is daydreaming, and discipline without vision is drudgery. Strategic tools bring the two together, grounding ambition in method. But remember, tools alone are not enough. SWOT, scenarios, and matrices are like lenses. They help us see more clearly, but they do not provide the vision itself. A telescope can reveal the stars, but only imagination can chart the course to them. Strategic thinking demands not only tools, but also the art of interpreting signals, spotting patterns, and forecasting trends. Tools are the foundation. The next step is foresight, the ability to anticipate tomorrow's landscape before it unfolds. So let us now move from instruments to imagination. Let us step into the realm of forecasting, of reading the whispers of the future, and preparing in advance. For the strategist, this art is as vital as any tool. Even with tools to analyze the present and clarify direction, a strategist must cultivate something rarer: the art of foresight. It is one thing to know where you want to go. It is another to sense the winds of change before they arrive and adjust your sails accordingly. This skill, forecasting and preparing for tomorrow, is not prophecy. It is disciplined imagination, grounded in patterns, history, and observation. Those who possess it seem almost prophetic, yet their secret lies not in mystical vision, but in trained perception. Think of weather forecasters. They do not create the storms or calm the skies. They study currents, satellites, and models to anticipate what will happen next. A strategist does the same with industries, societies, and personal life. They watch small signals, subtle shifts that others ignore, and interpret them as signs of what may come. Take, for example, Nokia in the early 2000s. Once the titan of mobile phones, they failed to foresee the shift from hardware-driven devices to software ecosystems. They focused on perfecting durable phones, while Apple and Google envisioned an entirely different future. The smartphone as a platform, not a product. When the shift came, Nokia stumbled. The lesson is clear. Ignoring weak signals can bring down giants. But there are stories of foresight used wisely. In the 1990s, Jeff Bezos observed the rapid growth of internet usage. At that time, online commerce was barely a whisper. Yet he projected forward. If internet adoption grew at that pace, shopping habits would inevitably move online. He left a secure job, founded Amazon in his garage, and built not for the present, but for the future he foresaw. The result reshaped global commerce. Foresight does not require genius. It requires the habit of asking, what is changing? What could this mean 5 or 10 years from now? In finance, this might mean noticing demographic shifts. An aging population demands healthcare services. In technology, it could mean observing the rise of artificial intelligence and asking how it will alter jobs, education, or art. In personal life, foresight could mean recognizing unhealthy habits and preparing before illness forces change. History offers countless illustrations. Winston Churchill, long before World War II erupted, warned of the dangers of Nazi Germany. While many dismissed him as alarmist, he read the signs: Hitler's speeches, military buildup, and political moves. When war came, Churchill was prepared to lead while others scrambled. His foresight, unpopular in the moment, proved decisive. Preparation is the twin of forecasting. To see a future but fail to act is useless. A strategist not only imagines scenarios, but also prepares responses. Consider the small nation of Singapore. Lacking natural resources, it foresaw the importance of human capital and global trade. Decades ago, its leaders invested heavily in education, infrastructure, and port facilities. Today, Singapore thrives not because of luck, but because of foresight wedded to preparation. Preparation often looks unglamorous. It is saving when others spend, training when others relax, learning when others are entertained. The reward comes later, when those without preparation falter. During the 2008 financial crisis, individuals and businesses who had built cash reserves, diversified income, or avoided excessive debt survived while others collapsed. They had no control over the global economy, but they had prepared for turbulence. There is also personal preparation. Imagine someone who senses the trend of automation. Rather than resisting, they retrain, learn digital skills, or pivot into roles requiring human judgment and creativity. When automation arrives, they are not displaced. They are ready. Foresight gave them time. Preparation gave them resilience. The art of foresight often demands humility. No one can predict the future with certainty. The strategist must accept that they will sometimes be wrong. But even wrong forecasts provide value if they stimulate preparation. A family that prepares emergency savings may never face disaster. Yet the act of preparing strengthens their security and peace of mind. Ancient traditions understood this wisdom. Farmers once watched the skies, animals, and seasons to predict harvests. Sailors read the stars and waves to anticipate storms. Their survival depended on paying attention to subtle cues. In modern life, the cues are different. Market data, technological innovations, cultural shifts, but the principle is the same. Those who pay attention thrive. Those who ignore perish. Think also of the biblical story of Joseph in Egypt. Interpreting Pharaoh's dream of 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows, Joseph foresaw 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. He advised storing grain during the good years, and when famine struck, Egypt not only survived but prospered. Whether or not you believe the story literally, its wisdom endures. Foresight and preparation can transform disaster into opportunity. In organizations, foresight is often expressed through trend analysis. Companies scan political, economic, social, and technological factors to detect early signals. A shift in youth culture may suggest future demand for sustainable products. Advances in renewable energy hint at a declining fossil fuel era. Early adopters seize these signals, while laggards cling to fading models. Individuals can do the same. Subscribe to quality information sources. Track developments in your field. Notice emerging conversations. Ask, if this continues, what might change in my career, finances, or community? Such questions spark preparation. Foresight also demands imagination beyond linear thinking. Many people assume the future will look like today, only slightly different. But sometimes change is exponential. Think of photography. For decades, film dominated. Then digital cameras improved exponentially, overtaking film almost overnight. Kodak, though aware of digital technology, failed to imagine its speed and scope. Their blindness cost them their empire. Strategic thinkers avoid this trap by daring to imagine futures radically different from the present. So how can you, listening now, practice this art? Begin by observing small shifts. Notice conversations, technologies, or behaviors that seem minor today. Ask how they might grow. Record your observations, discuss them with others, build mental scenarios. Then prepare, not in fear, but in readiness. You may wonder, does this not make life heavy with worry? On the contrary, foresight liberates. To anticipate is to remove surprise. Preparation turns anxiety into confidence. You sleep better knowing you have savings for emergencies, skills for tomorrow, and a vision that stretches beyond the horizon. And yet, foresight is not only for nations, corporations, or careers. It is for daily life. A parent preparing a child for future independence, a teacher shaping students for a world not yet built, a community planting trees that will shade generations yet unborn. All are acts of strategic foresight. The discipline of forecasting and preparation leads us naturally to the most practical question. How do we apply all of this? Not just in theory, not just in analysis, but in the fabric of daily decisions. How does strategic thinking reshape careers, finances, and leadership in concrete ways? To see that, we turn now to application, where vision meets action and foresight becomes leadership. Strategic thinking may sound like something reserved for boardrooms, governments, or battlefields, but its true power lies in how it transforms daily life. A grand vision is meaningless if it cannot shape the choices you make on an ordinary Tuesday morning. To apply strategic vision daily is to live with intention, to connect what you do now with who you want to become, and to guide your path with foresight rather than impulse. Consider your career. Many people drift, hoping promotions will appear, waiting for managers to notice them. They react to opportunities rather than shaping them. A strategic professional does something different. They define a long-term vision, perhaps to become an expert in a specialized field, a leader in their organization, or an entrepreneur in their own right. Then they align daily actions with that vision. They choose projects not for comfort, but for growth. They seek mentors, expand networks, and acquire skills that will be valuable 5 or 10 years from now. The difference may not be visible day to day, but over a decade, the gap between reactive workers and strategic thinkers becomes a chasm. Finance offers another vivid example. Imagine two families with equal incomes. One spends freely, letting lifestyle inflate with every raise, and at the end of each month, nothing remains. The other family sets long-term goals: a college fund, retirement security, a home free of debt. Each financial choice is measured against those goals. They delay certain pleasures, invest consistently, and prepare for downturns. Years later, when crises come, one family faces panic and scarcity, while the other experiences stability and confidence. The income was the same. The difference was strategic application. Leaders in organizations face the same choice. A reactive leader manages crises, solves today's problems, and works tirelessly. Their people may admire their energy, but remain trapped in cycles of urgency. A strategic leader asks, "How can I shape systems so crises occur less often? How can I empower others to act independently? How can today's decisions position us for tomorrow's opportunities?" They create structures, delegate authority, and align teams around shared vision. Their leadership multiplies beyond themselves. History provides powerful illustrations of this principle. Take Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. He was pressured constantly to respond to immediate military failures, to fire generals, to appease factions. Yet he kept his eye on the long end, preserving the Union and abolishing slavery. Each daily decision was measured against those outcomes. His ability to connect the present with the desired future transformed the nation. Or consider Nelson Mandela. After decades in prison, he emerged not consumed by bitterness, but guided by a strategic vision, a South Africa reconciled, not fractured. Daily, he chose words and actions that pointed toward that vision, seeking unity, forgiving enemies, and setting an example of dignity. The result was a transition that avoided civil war and offered hope to millions. Strategic vision expressed itself not in grand speeches alone, but in deliberate daily choices. In business, we see this in the story of Howard Schultz of Starbucks. He envisioned not just selling coffee, but creating a third place between home and work. Every daily decision, from store layout to employee training, was guided by that vision. The result was not just a company, but a cultural shift in how people experienced coffee houses. Strategic vision daily requires discipline. It is easy to be seduced by urgency, the email demanding reply, the meeting demanding presence, the crisis demanding energy. But the strategist asks, is this urgent thing also important? Does it move me toward my long-term end? Often the answer is no. Strategic people learn to say no, not out of laziness, but out of focus. Each no to distraction is a yes to destiny. It also requires patience. Strategic action rarely delivers immediate reward. Saving money feels slow. Learning a skill takes months before it pays off. Building relationships is invisible work until opportunities emerge. The impatient abandon the path. declaring it ineffective. The patient reap the fruit in due season. Daily strategy also thrives on reflection. Each evening or week, ask yourself, did my actions align with my vision? What adjustments must I make? Such reflection turns life from autopilot to intentional journey. Without it, we become prisoners of routine. With it, we become designers of destiny. Think of compounding interest, that quiet but powerful force in finance. A small investment grows slowly at first, then exponentially over time. Strategic actions behave the same way. Reading 10 pages of a book each day seems trivial, but over years, it produces a library in the mind. Exercising consistently may show little difference in weeks, but in decades, it rewrites health. Every daily choice compounds. Strategic thinkers understand this and honor the small acts, because they know where those acts lead. Let us return to the metaphor of the chess player. Each move, viewed alone, may seem minor. But strung together, guided by foresight, the sequence creates victory. Daily life is no different. Every conversation, habit, or choice is a move on the board. The strategist plays not only for today's satisfaction, but for tomorrow's checkmate. The truth is, strategic vision is not about brilliance. It is about consistency. Anyone can have a flash of insight, a moment of inspiration. The strategist translates insight into habits. They embed their vision into routines. They live as though their future were already here, shaping their present to match it. And so, as we draw this journey to its conclusion, we return to the central truth. People with strategic vision do not merely react to life. They lead it. They do not wait for waves to toss them. They prepare their sails. They do not let crises dictate direction. They design systems that anticipate them. They live each day with the end in mind, applying tools, foresight, and discipline to ensure that when the future arrives, they are not surprised, but ready. Strategic thinkers understand that life is not a series of accidents, but a game of alignment. They recognize that while we cannot control every storm, we can build ships strong enough to withstand them. We cannot dictate every market shift, but we can prepare to adapt. We cannot eliminate uncertainty, but we can transform it into opportunity. This is the mindset that turns ordinary workers into leaders, ordinary days into meaningful progress, and ordinary lives into legacies. You too can live this way. Begin today. Pause before the next decision and ask, does this align with my vision? Does this prepare me for tomorrow? If the answer is yes, proceed boldly. If not, adjust. Over time, these questions will become instinct, and your life will move steadily toward the horizon you have chosen. And now, as we bring this audiobook to its close, let us gather the threads of our journey, reflect on what we have learned, and leave with a final word of inspiration. You have traveled through the arc of strategic thinking, from the difference between workers and thinkers, to the principle of beginning with the end in mind, through the tools of clarity, the art of foresight, and the discipline of daily application. Each part has offered a new lens, and together they form a single truth. Strategy is not something you visit occasionally. It is a way of life. Think of the many stories we explored. The lumberjack who paused to sharpen his axe, cutting more trees than the one who never stopped. The leaders who lifted their gaze from the urgent to the ultimate, guiding nations and companies through storms. The families who prepared, the professionals who retrained, the dreamers who dared to envision futures no one else saw. Their secret was not superhuman ability. It was perspective, preparation, and persistence. Strategic thinking is not about predicting every detail of the future. It is about preparing your mind and your habits so that when the unexpected arrives, you are not shaken. It is about aligning the bricks you lay today with the cathedral you hope to see tomorrow. Perhaps as you listen now, you feel both challenged and inspired. Maybe you see places in your own life where you have been busy but not strategic, reactive but not visionary. Do not despair. Every strategist begins with the same step: awareness. From awareness comes choice, and from choice comes transformation. The heart of this audiobook lies in a simple conviction: you are not condemned to drift. You are not bound to repeat the same cycles of reaction. You can lead your life with foresight. You can pause, reflect, and act with the end in mind. You can use tools to clarify, cultivate foresight to anticipate, and apply your vision daily to ensure progress. Remember the image we began with: the worker laying bricks without ever looking up, and the thinker who steps back to see the city forming. Which one will you be? The answer is found not in your intention, but in your daily choices. Each day, you decide whether to bury your head in tasks or to lift your eyes to the horizon. Strategic thinkers are not merely survivors, they are navigators. They do not wait for storms to toss them. They build ships strong enough to sail. They do not react to the game. They shape it. They are not defined by circumstances. They define circumstances. So let this moment be your turning point. Begin to live strategically today. Before your next decision, pause and ask, where will this lead me in 5 years? That single question, asked consistently, can alter the trajectory of your life. The waves of the future will rise whether you prepare or not. But those who prepare are not drowned. They are carried. Be the one who sees ahead, who sharpens their tools, who acts with vision. Be the one who does not merely react, but who leads the way. That is the invitation of strategic thinking. That is the legacy you can begin to shape now.